Proteges only get 2 lifetime bites at the apple, which means you can only have 2 agreements and then you're out. For mentors, you can have up to 3 concurrently.
So when you say 2 bites of the apple, that's it?
2 lifetime agreements. You got to get in and you get out. That's it.
What is the typical duration of a mentor protege agreement?
They can last up to 6 years.
Okay.
You can enter the program at any time.
What is some of the things that I need to do to become a mentor?
That's the number one question, right? You need to make a commitment to do what you say you're going to do in the mentor protege agreement.
Is that a problem?
It can be. That's what happens when you have those shotgun weddings and you don't date.
One of my friends right now is going through a deposition with his joint venture because of some things that didn't go right. As we speak. So people, this does get ugly if you're not careful in choosing the right partners.
I don't want to scare the pants off of people listening to this podcast, but our proteges have been applying Sans Mentor.
Okay, what was the word you used?
It was me being fancy, Eric. Just bypass it.
Man, you can be fancy. Look, I know my people are doing this.
So remember, you're going to use this program to build. You're building. You're not starting with us.
Let's say that we start with it because it's easy, but we don't know how to get contracts.
You are wasting time.
All right, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is K.A. Perkins. I am Deputy Director of SBA's Mentor Protégé Program.
Wow. And can you share with us really quickly about your journey in government contracting and what led you to your current role as Deputy Director at the SBA?
Sure. I've been in civil service for about 16 years. So I'm originally from Kansas City. I started with the General Services Administration back in 2008, where I transitioned quickly into federal procurement. My specialty was construction, architectural engineering contracting, and also CMC contracting. I did that for about 7 years. And then one day I decided to change cities, change agencies, and change career paths. And I transitioned from federal procurement into kind of a general business job series, if you will. For all intents and purposes, I worked for an SBA district office in San Antonio, Texas, and my primary responsibility was managing a portfolio of the 8A program. From there, I was in San Antonio for a short time. I then took an opportunity to move from San Antonio to DC, where I currently work to this day at SBA headquarters. And I continued in the 8A program. And then currently, I've been with the Mentor Protégé Program for about 5 years.
Nice. Wow. And what inspired you to focus on advocating for small businesses, particularly within federal procurement?
So 2 things. My passion for and advocacy for small business really comes from having a mom as an entrepreneur. So my mom is I always call her a semi-retired real estate agent. And so I watched her work for years, and I just always admired the work, the fortitude, the passion that she had for those in the market for buying a house. How that translated into what I currently do is when I joined civil service and I started learning about contracting, I started to also learn about the, fiduciary duty that federal government has when it comes to setting aside certain procurements for small business. That's where I first heard about the 8A program. I was kind of fascinated with that. Like, what's this whole 8A? And why is it called 8A? And, okay, why do we do this every year? And why do we have these capability briefings and so forth and so on? So I got to know some of those firms and, just throughout my journey, I think it just was really important to me to make sure that whatever I did, it was to advocate for those small businesses that just kind of keep America going. So that is kind of how I ended up here in this journey, or in this role, supporting small business in a different capacity than I used to.
All right, great. Now let's get into the SBA Mentor Protégé Program. Can you tell us
Absolutely.
about, that's what they're here for. That's what everybody wants to hear about, the SBA Mentor Protégé Program. And I get so many people asking me, they're coming into the business and like, hey, I want to get an SBA Mentor Protégé Program, because that you guys do a great job of marketing that program, by the way. Just so you know, like you're touting it. A lot of people want to jump into it. So tell us a little bit about the program, an overview, and its primary objectives.
Okay. So a lot of people are familiar with the SBA certifications. So you've got WOSB, and now that cert is with us at SBA, HubZone, and of course 8A, like I just mentioned. So the Mentor Protege Program, I always like to say it's all of those and then it's none of those. So it's not a certification program, but it is a way for small businesses to build capacity in the federal marketplace through teaming. And we have a fancy term for that. We call it a waiver of affiliation. And
Mm-hmm.
so for those of you who are unfamiliar with that, I'll kind of explain it this way. Overall, we call ourselves a business development program. And the example I always like to give is, I'm a small business. I'm looking to, go from where I currently am to what I perceive to be that next step. And, Eric, you're going to help me as a more experienced business. I need help with QuickBooks. I need accounting help. And so you're going to help me with that. That's, quite the simplification, but that is an example of business development. So on the other side of that, you have this waiver of affiliation tool. And so what this means is, I am a small business. So independently, I can go after whatever set asides and reserves there are, and there's no size problem. So, if a size standard is $45 million, I made, $200,000 consistently rather over the last 5 years. There's no size issue there.
Right.
If you're an other than small business, which is what the government typically calls it, or a large business, then if we come together and we form a joint venture, there's a size problem there.
Mm-hmm.
So what this program does is it gives us a get out of jail free card, if you will. And it says, you know what? We know that Eric's business is other than small. Therefore, if they come together and form a joint venture, which is just an empty entity, if you will, and we're subbing under that entity, it's probably the best way for people to kind of understand how that works. Then we're gonna forgive that whole size thing. So together, we're gonna be able to go after set asides and reserves, and that joint venture entity is going to take on the size of my company, the small business. It's going to take on my certifications. So if I'm HubZone, that joint venture is HubZone. If I'm 8A, that joint venture is also 8A. So you're going to take on the size and the certifications of my business, and you get out of jail free card in order to go forth and put in proposals for those businesses and compete.
I like that explanation. I think that was probably the easiest explanation that I've heard before.
I am a former
Affiliation.
teacher. This is what I do. I teach.
Yeah, I've had several attorneys on my show and explain affiliation, and it was not that.
Oh man. Oh man. Yeah, you don't want that. You just want me to come on and just talk about it.
No.
Now the topic of affiliation, that gets into some serious weeds there, and it's a term of art that is pretty exclusive to SBA. So even when I've gone to DoD conferences, they're like, okay, Kay, when you get up there, explain this whole affiliation waiver, the thing about the thing, talk about that. What is that? Tell the people what that is. But yeah, basically, for all intents and purposes, for this conversation, that affiliation waiver just allows us to, roam freely around the country, offering our proposals for set asides and small business reserves.
Can a small business sign up for this at any time?
Yes. let me delve into that a little bit. So I'm gonna hop on my soapbox, and
Okay.
hopefully
No,
that's
thank you.
okay with you,
I know
Eric.
it's not on my list of questions, but this is a question that people ask me when they just start.
Yeah.
They never won a contract before, but they said, Eric, I want a mentor and I want to do a mentor protege.
So let me explain it this way. So you can sign up at any time, but it's really important to consider um, program readiness before coming into every program. I'm going to give an example, but I'll get to mentor protege, but I'm going to give an example of the Cadillac of the small business programs, which is 8A, right? So I used to manage a portfolio of those in San Antonio. And so you see people rolling in and out of that program throughout that 9 year tenure. So there's some companies that, maybe I was their second business opportunity specialist, maybe their third business opportunity specialist. And then there's some who, I was their first and their only until, I went on to greener pastures, right? And I will tell you this, the same thing happened to all the successful firms, I would say, somewhere around year 3 or 4. So remember, 8A lasts for 9 years. Around year 3 or 4, they all said to me, and I promise they all did this, Eric. They said, I wish I would have waited. I wish I would have waited to do that. And why do they wish that? Because there's a learning curve that takes place with 8A, and that learning curve takes about 3 to 4 years. And around year 4, they start understanding what it means to self market. They start understanding what it means to research, to look at forecast materials, to submit proposals, to perform the work, all the forms, the relationships. They understand how each cog in the machine actually works. But by the time you get there, it's time for you to start dialing back your 8A requirements so that you can transition out of the program. And so, you see a lot of, dang, I wish I'd have waited. Okay, but you didn't really ask me about that.
Oh,
So
that was, by the way, that was a great point. I appreciate that.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I heard it all the time, and I was like, yeah. They all want to come in, they want to rush in, but once they understand it, they're like, oh man. So, and 8A's one and done. So when it comes to mentor protege, you've got you got business development. So I talked about QuickBooks, right? There's 6 different types according to our regulations, such as contracting assistance, business development assistance, management and technical assistance, administrative assistance, international trade, and I think I said contracting. I think that's all 6. You call them what you want, and then you and your mentor get together to figure out what that looks like. Anyway, you got business development, you got subcontracting, joint ventures, you got teaming agreements or teaming arrangements, whether you're referring to the FAR language or 13 CFR. So with all of those tools, as long as the 2 partners are individually and collectively small for joint ventures, that's the only exception. Other than that, you can do all that and not participate in our program whatsoever. So the point is to be strategic and to be smart about when you enter the program. One, because, and I know we'll get to this eventually, but you want to date before you marry. You don't want to just look at, well, I want to make business cards for the government. I'll use something super simple. And so I am teaming with the number 2 business card maker in the US when you've never worked together before. Is that something you really want to do? That's not something you really want to do.
Right.
So, but you can do all these without entering our program. Proteges only get 2 lifetime bites at the apple, which means you can only have 2 agreements and then you're out. For mentors, you can have up to 3 concurrently. So you got to think smart about how you enter and what your role is when you enter. So someone who's really thinking about what I just said is thinking, well, maybe I could do my 2. And then when I build capacity up to X number of dollars a year, whatever that looks like for them, then I can enter the program again, but I can do so as a mentor with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a way to think about it. So yes, you can enter the program at any time. There's not like a 2 year requirement like there is with 8A, for example. But it's really smart to think about how you're entering the program. If you are just starting a business and you do not know who you are as a business, nor have you ever worked in the federal marketplace, this program isn't going anywhere. Know who you are as a business first, and then get some experience under your belt, perhaps through what I like to call dating, also known as subcontracting with another business. That way, you can kind of get your feet wet, understand the processes, um, see if your values and ethics match that proposed mentor, because revenue might attract you, but what keeps you together is values and ethics.
Mm.
I have I've seen some relationships end in a mentor protege program where the stakes were so high and the dollar values were so high, like billions, like with a B. And for billions of dollars, Eric, I'm just going to take you out for coffee and we're going to hash it out and we're going to like be rich. That's what we're going to do. But sometimes those values are so mismatched and they don't know it until it's too late. And so think about when you're entering the program. Okay, I'm just going to step off my soapbox so you can move to the next question.
I like your check box. You said revenues might attract, but ethics and values, what was your line?
That's
Oh,
what keeps you.
keeps you.
That's what creates a 30-year marriage. I'm speaking metaphorically, of
All
course.
right. Yeah.
But knowing that your mentor isn't going to change the terms of any agreement that the two of you have made, or try to make a side deal where they say, Eric, look here, on this next task order, it looks like you're going to be doing 85% of the work, but I'm going to pay you for 30%. How about that? Does that sound good? What do you think about that? And things like that can happen. Are they supposed to? Absolutely not. And if they do, and you're in the program, you let me know directly. But things like that can happen if you don't test out those values before you get into a relationship.
Yeah, makes sense. So the SBA merged the 8A Mentor Protege and the All Small Mentor Protege in 2020. What were some of the reasons for that consolidation?
The main reason was um, there was a duplication of regulation programs, regulations, and benefits. So let me kind of give a really short history lesson. Let's see, I joined SBA in 2015. Around 2016, there was a huge rule change. And actually, I want to move forward a little bit to 2020. So what happened is, well, in 2016 there was a shift. Let me start over. Apologies. So in 2016 there was a shift in mentor protege programs. Exclude Up until 2016, the mentor protege program was exclusively for 8A. When 2016 happened, Congress said, look, 8A Mentor Protege Program, it's good times, it's great. We want to offer some of those benefits to all eligible small businesses. So, SBA, we are mandating that you create this all small mentor protege program, and SBA did just that. So 2016 happens, you have 8A's mentor protege program, you have all smalls mentor protege program. The regulations, if you looked at them, were nearly identical outside of a few words and a little clause right here. I mean, it literally was Control X, Control V, basically. I mean, it just was copy and paste. And so, you had firms that were 8A who went through their district office for a mentor protege agreement, and then for some reason decided that all small was better, and then went in to certify our system of record, applied for um, a mentor protege agreement in our program, and then we just kind of moved them over. It just was kind of I don't know. I mean, I'm telling you how it worked, but it just was kind of odd. And so then Congress was like, it's complicated, uncomplicated. So we did just that, and we consolidated those two programs. So it's not so much that 8A no longer exists. It's just that it really is what is now the SBA Mentor Protégé Program. So we're no longer all small. We've not been all small now for years since that rule change. So we're just a single program that is headquarters related, not district office related. Another change to that is key because joint ventures is where the money is, right? So what is key to that is if it's not a requirement for 8A sole source specifically, so not a
Looks like we lost.
review, approve, or maintain any joint ventures, joint venture records, anything like that. So hopefully that explanation makes sense.
Repeat that again. I lost you for a little bit. I think my signal went out. You said, so if it's not an 8A sole source, what happens now?
Sure. If it's not, if the requirement being sought is not 8A sole source, then the Mentor Protege Program, and All Small never did this, but the SBA Mentor Protege Program will not review or approve a or a joint venture. Now, because you told me to say it again, I'm flubbing my words. But the point, but my point is, we do not review or approve joint ventures. 8A sole source is the only exception, and the servicing district office is who takes care of that. So we do not maintain joint venture records either. So if you go out today, Eric, you form that joint venture, you're like, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to do it. Okay, Mentor Protege Program, here's my joint venture for such and such. Nah, we don't need it. We don't maintain it.
Interesting. What are some of the qualifications for small business to become a protege?
Sure. So we're the U.S. Small Business Administration, so you got to be small. So there's that. As a protege, you need to be a for-profit entity.
Okay.
And you are applying with either your primary or your secondary NAICS code.
Okay.
So if you're applying, if you're a construction firm and you are applying under 236220, which I'm assuming that you know, or that your audience knows NAICS codes, then I'm not speaking out of turn. Okay. Okay.
Thank you for
so if you're applying under that, we don't need any proof of experience. If you're a construction firm, but you are applying under, let's say, 541310, which I think might be architecture, engineer services. I believe so. So if you're applying under that, then we're going to need either paid invoices or executed contracts as proof of experience. Why? It's probably the next question. I can see that look on your face. So the reason why is because, quite frankly, we do not want our joint ventures to be pass-throughs. That is a disservice to the protege. That is a fear of the contracting activity. If we are reviewing the past performance of looking at the qualifications for awarding a contract to a small business concern, and that small business is the managing venturer, fancy talk for they're running stuff. So if that's what we're doing, then we don't really want to just be passing right over them and go into Boeing, their sure. Large business partner. Just picking on Boeing, but just giving that as an example. So that's the reason for that.
What about attributes that are essential for a company to serve as a mentor?
What was the first part of the question? Apologies.
What attributes are essential for companies to serve as mentors? So again, I know we're talking to the small business community, but we do have other organizations that could potentially be mentors that are not in the federal arena, right? And so they may want to work with some of our 8A portfolio helps own companies to, right? So what about
Yeah.
they're wondering as well, what do I do? I'm not a small business. I do 100 million a year. How, what is some of the things that I need to do to become a mentor?
So most eligibility requirements hinge on the protege partner.
Hmm.
For the mentor, you have to be, well, you can actually be nonprofit or for profit. You can be either one. And essentially, aside from that, you need to make a commitment to do what you say you're going to do in the mentor protege agreement. That's it. Just hold up your end of the bargain. So, Eric, if your job is to show me how to do, cost accounting methods, then you need to show me exactly how to do that.
Is that a problem?
It can be.
Okay.
That's what happens when you have those shotgun weddings and you don't date. So,
You get married in Vegas
right,
at the Elvis Presley.
right. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I,
So,
I,
yeah,
a lot of people come to me, they want that. That's what they asked me for. And I'm sure they probably
the
can say the same thing.
the shotgun weddings.
Maybe, yeah, they come to me and say, hey, look, I just, hey, I want to get this joint venture Mentor Protégé. How long have you known him? Oh, I just met him last week.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the ones that really concern me are the small businesses that they call me up and they've got a ton of questions and it's sounding good. That's my job. And I answer questions and do stuff, right? And then you start I'm a former English teacher, so I really pay attention to what people say, like, words and inflections and all of that. And so then I start listening to how they're communicating things. And, they're like, well, I'm really doing this for Eric. And Eric wanted me to talk to you, and Eric wanted me to do this. And do you know what Eric made last year? It was 50 million.
Right.
Do you know that? And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Just realize that both of you bring something to the table, because without your size and or your certifications, that's a barrier to entry for that other than small business, or for that small business that may no longer be 8A, whatever the case.
Right.
So you both have experience and size to bring to the table. So yeah, I've seen that before. And yes, I do tell them exactly what I just said. And for any small business looking to do something just on the behalf of the mentor, if you aren't sharing responsibilities at the forefront, do you think that's going to get any better upon approval?
Oof. Yeah.
It's
No.
rhetorical. If
Right.
you want, you can give that pregnant pause, Eric, and then you can just go on to the next question.
No, I mean, everything you're saying makes a lot of sense to me. And I just think about the questions that people ask me, and I just love your answers. So this will be great.
Those are the ones that don't work.
Right, right,
They don't work.
right.
They come back, or um, if they're brave, the small business, because a lot of them are like, "Oh, wait a minute, like, how do I get out of this?" But don't tell them I said it. And I'm like, well, let's see what the circumstances are. Let's see what we can do. Um, but a lot of them try to, get out of the relationship, and they're just like, well, I mean, I don't understand what went wrong. And I'm thinking about that phone call I had with them like 8 or 9 months ago. And I'm like, yeah, there were a few red flags.
It's
Yeah,
funny.
a little
Actually,
bit. Now, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
one of my friends right now is going through a deposition with his joint venture because of some things that didn't go right. As we speak.
No.
So people, this does get ugly if you're not careful in choosing the right partners.
And I don't want to scare the pants off of people listening to this podcast. Um, a lot of these relationships, they go well. They do. They may not even need 6 years in the program. It was, we wanted to go after an Oasis contract. or we saw this GSA schedule. We wanted to go after that. And that's all we wanted to do together. And we're good. But a lot of those relationships that went well, they knew each other back in like 2010. They met at some networking such and such, and then they got to talking, and they're like, well, what do you do? Okay, well, what do you do? Okay, well, I saw this requirement, and maybe you can come in, you do a little drywall for me.
Yeah.
And it builds and builds on top of that. And by the time they've done maybe 6, 7, 8 contracts together, someone gets to thinking like, man, maybe, we can, take this and parlay it into some type of mentor protege, possibly mentor protege joint venture relationship. So, and you can just tell. I'll say this quickly. About a year and a half ago, not quite 2 years ago, I think, I put on an SBA Mentor Protégé conference, and there was a workshop on how to find a mentor. That's the number one question, right? So, I had 2 or 3 different mentor protege partners on stage, and they all had good relationships. You can look at their body language, though, and tell just how great their relationship was. You had some that might have had just a little bit of distance, like, we got a good professional relationship. And you have some of them, they're like, we're going for drinks after this. Like, he's cool. Right. And, we play well together, we work well together. You can see like just how strong those relationships are. And at the end of the day, those are not companies that just met each other last week. They aren't. This takes time to form.
So with that, you kind of open up your own can of worms. So what is the answer to the way to find a mentor? Since that's such a pressing.
I've been doing this for a while, so yeah, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that. You asked that question. That's a great one.
Yeah. So this is kind of a 30,000 foot view of how I would go about it. So there are some free websites out there. One is usaspending.gov. The other one is FPDS-NG, or FPDS, sorry, FPDS.gov. And those sites, one, they help you kind of get a really high overview of who's getting what, who's who in the zoo. I'm interested in it, for example, working with the VA, who's getting, residential housing contracts with the VA. Like, what does that even look like? FPDS is going to go a bit further and show you what those contracting actions look like. If you are lucky enough or savvy enough, you could even use that to do some data mining on your own, or you can go to a small business office with your the agency that you're seeking to work with, and basically ask them, hey, do you have a forecasting tool so that you can, dive even deeper. Once you look at these 2 sites, you should come up with some type of list of firms to approach. You then treat these firms the way you should treat going to agencies and self-marketing. So you've got your capabilities statement, you request a capabilities briefing, and you're interviewing. So not only are you wanting to seem attractive to them, but you're interviewing them as well to see, are they interested in what it is you have to offer? What are those relationships like? And from there, what you want to do is start maybe talking about dating with some of them. Like, hey, notice that you are on the current contract for whatever it is, and the follow-on is going to happen, in the next 6 months. As the incumbent, are you putting in for that? What does that look like? And, hey, do you need someone to sub in these areas? And you're doing this over time. You may get a job from one company, you may get two jobs from another company. And then from there, just like you would with anything else, you're building those relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going to add this last piece because I've heard people say this, and it concerns me. We have an active list of mentor protege agreements. We update it every single month. I've heard the ones who believe they are doing their due diligence and that they're smarter than the average bear. They'll say, well, okay, I've got that all figured out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use your list that you put out every month, and that's how I'm going to find a mentor. And at the risk of sounding crass, and I don't mean to, my question to them is always this: do you want to be the main chick or the side chick? The only firms on that list are ones in relationships. Is that what you want? Because for every hour or day or whatever moment that they're spending with this other firm, that's time being taken away from you. Yes, mentors may have up to 3 relationships, but do you want to be one of those? I might look at it as a final measure to vet, but I'm not just going to solely look at that and say, man, Eric's got 2 relationships. Man, he looks like he's bobbing and weaving. Let me call Eric and see how he's doing. You don't want to do that. So, yeah. So, that is from most general to most specific. That's how I would drill down a list of potential primes I would date. And then I would cultivate those relationships with from there. It doesn't mean you can't do networking events. It doesn't mean you can't, cold call if you want to do that. That seems like an arduous deal these days. I hang up on any number I don't know or just don't answer it. But it doesn't mean you can't do other things, but that's how I would go about it, generally speaking.
What is the typical duration of a mentor protege agreement?
They can last up to 6 years.
Okay.
So if you have 2 bites at the apple, that is a potential for 12 years in the program.
So when you say 2 bites of the apple, that's it?
And 2 lifetime agreements. The point of the program is to build capacity to compete independently in the federal marketplace. At some time, Eric, it must end. Just like 8A.
We want to live forever, we don't want.
Yeah. You can't Peter Pan this program, sir. Like, you got to get in and you get out. That's it.
Okay, so 2 times.
2 bites at the apple.
That's it, forever. 6 years, up to 6 years. Are there any type of provisions for extensions?
No.
Okay.
No.
So then it definitely doesn't make sense that I do them simultaneously.
Some firms do.
Right.
And the 2 areas or the 2 types of MPAs may differ. So this one's going to focus on proposal writing and going after DoD contracts. And this one is going to show me cost accounting, or, if they're going to give me a loan, or they're going to do whatever. So it can't be the exact same thing.
Okay. So what about, okay, if I don't have any type of socioeconomic designation, right? Because I think what I'm hearing, and I'm trying to put myself in the position of the people that are listening to this, they're lumping all this stuff together, right? I've heard people do these big word salads, and so I want to separate things out. So if I have no certifications, I could still do this.
You're asking.
I'm asking the question, right? If I have no certifications, and can I still join the Mentor Protégé Program without any
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Absolutely. So as long as you are an eligible small business, so remember we talked about being for profit and being small. Another one, I think I've seen this happen once in 5.5 years, so I did not mention it. But there cannot be a previous finding or determination of affiliation between the two firms.
Okay.
And if there is, then there has to be a letter that reverses that finding or that determination.
Okay. Fair.
So, we are sharing resources, or, I work in your office and 98% of my contracts come from you over like the past 15 years. And, your brother is also like CFO of my company, and just all these things where we're so intertwined. If there is something reversing that, then, we can move ahead and move forward with the application.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure for the audience listening that, hey, you don't need to be certified to be in the Mentor Protégé Program.
But again, you know what? I'm not even going to apologize for beating this into people's heads, but still think about it strategically. I'll give you an example of something that to me doesn't make sense, but maybe I haven't considered all the angles. I've had firms contact me and they say, Kay, yeah, we went ahead and we applied for your program. By the way, it was super easy to get in. First of all, that shouldn't be a reason for applying. And, we're thinking, we're going to be in for about 2 years. And then, now that I know I can get into a program, I'm now going to go after 8A. Mm-hmm. And to me, you should be building on top of what you can do. So let me just say this. First of all, because you were asking the question about certifications, but I want to make sure that I make this clear. Know who you are as a business before you go touting your certifications. So when you do a capabilities briefing, don't lead with being an 8A. It's just bad form, and so is everyone else. So, like, what else do you do, and what are you capable of? And the most important thing is, how are you going to solve their problem? It's just like an interview. Mm. So there's that piece of it. Also, what you really want to pay attention to is you want to make sure that you fortify or use this program to fortify any certifications you have, which is why I think you should get this one after you are certified. So it just makes you even more attractive. So not only are you 8A, not only do you have this percentage of contracts that are reserved or set aside for you, but now you've got a partner. Now you have their resources. Now you have their past performance. Now you have their financial assistance or whatever that looks like in your mentor protege agreement. And you are even more experienced, more capable to go after requirements that are being set aside. And I won't go down the slippery slope of category management, but things are a lot bigger now than they used to be. And so I personally think, and I'm biased, I'm okay with that the Mentor Protege Program is a saving grace to that.
Yeah. Let me go a little bit further with that question, line of questioning. Mm-hmm. So I've got no certifications. I applied for your Mentor Protege Program, but I don't have a joint venture partner.
You have to have a mentor.
So you have to have a mentor in order to apply for the program.
You do.
Okay.
Which is why we spend all that time about how to find one. No, I know. I have a very thorough screener. And he has told me that recently we just talked about this earlier today. There's been a trend with proteges, and I wish our system didn't allow this to happen, but our proteges have been applying sans mentor. And they are quickly declined without a mentor.
Okay, what was the word you used?
It was me being fancy, Eric. Just bypass it.
Man, listen, you can be fancy. I'm not fancy, so you can teach me something today on the show. Everybody gonna watch her teach me something. What did you teach?
It was me speaking French for just a moment, but it was just one word. It was me channeling my inner Fraser Crane. So
Okay.
yes.
I
But yeah, we will
so people
decline
are
those
trying
applications
to
quickly
fly without being having a mentor.
and failing every time.
Well, that's why I
There's
said
there's
that
no
because
way.
yeah, that's why I asked the question because this is what people tell me because they go, Eric, I want to apply for the mentor project program, but they don't have a mentor. So I'm like, okay.
Gotta have a mentor.
That's why I asked the question because I know people are like I know my people are doing this.
So for people who are listening and for editing purposes, however this is edited, so remember, you're going to use this program to build. You're building. You're not starting with us because, man, it's easy to apply to mentor project program. That is not why you position us as your front line. It's not it. It's
You
just
know,
not. And you're stating for me, thank you, by the way, all the reasons why. You got it. So think about what we talked about. You have to have that relationship.
yeah, no, pretty.
You got to know them. You should date. You should.
Well,
Just
even,
saying.
and what's interesting is that let's say that we start with it because it's easy, right? And now, but we don't know how to get contracts. So to your point, right?
You are wasting
We still don't know
time.
how to get contracts.
We don't even give you a piece of paper, Eric.
You don't give me no piece of paper. I don't get nothing.
You're what? No, no.
But I
There
get
is no piece of paper where you are taking that to your capabilities briefing,
what did
saying, "Look,
I
yeah,
don't get
we don't do
nothing.
that.
I don't get a
Nope.
stamp. I don't get a seal. Nothing.
You get a welcome letter.
Can I just work?
Welcome to wasting time."
I hope they made it this far to hear this part because I'm gonna put this first because this is what they need to hear.
Oh,
Make sure they edit this first. So, all right, well, good. I'm good. I'm off that. We're gonna get off that. That we don't been down a rabbit hole on this. Okay, no problem. Can you tell me some examples of small businesses who have significantly benefited from the program? Give us some success stories. You don't have to
one of
name
the
names.
success
You don't have to
stories.
name names. Just
No, no. One of the success stories I can think of is, I'll just say, a construction firm from my hometown of Kansas City. So I had first heard of them. I promise this is just coincidental. Small world, the federal marketplace, which is another reason to think strategically because bad performance will kill you in the federal marketplace. But moving on, there's this firm that at the time was 8A. I never had them as a contract specialist, but some of my coworkers did. And we talk and everything, who's who in the zoo, who's doing well, who's not, so forth and so on. Fast forward many years later, I think I was at GSA until 2014. This company is, one, they're in the program. Two, they're in the program as a protege and as a mentor simultaneously. And yes, you can do that. And they have been very methodical about how they're growing and scaling their business. So their mentor is huge. Like, they're a good sized firm,
right.
but they're graduated 8A. So they're strategic in wanting to continue to succeed in the 8A program once removed, if you will.
Right, right.
So their protege is 8A. And by the way, I'll give you this for free. I have found in my experience in this program that some of the best mentors are graduated 8A companies.
I love it.
Go big if you want to, but if you want money, stick to graduated 8A.
All right, that's fair. What are some of the metrics that the SBA uses to evaluate the success of the mentor protege relationships?
So every year that you have an active mentor protege agreement, the protege is responsible for completing what we call an annual evaluation. And it is extensive. It is 84 questions. We're looking at essentially 10 different areas. We want to know everything from, did you form a joint venture? Any identifying information. We're also wanting you to rate your mentor on a 5-point scale from fantastic to good and terrible. We want to know that. We have to report that to Congress. We're also wanting to know what some of your increases are, if you will. So, for example, did you start out with 2 employees and now you have 75 employees? Did you start out with 80, now you have 250? We also want to know what are the requirements that you went after independently? Um, which ones did you win? Which ones did you lose? Which ones are pending? Which ones did you go after um, with your mentor? We're asking all types of questions, and a lot of them are just kind of selecting the right answer or inputting data. But there are certain questions where we allow for extensive narratives in case they want to give some additional information on the successes in that relationship. For the narratives, you can't really rate that as far as like a data point, but it does give us some good insight as to how people are building capacity and what they're using, what they're doing to build that capacity in the federal marketplace.
I like that. I like it. I like it. All right, let's get some fun stuff. Let's get some fun stuff. Let's get people to know a little about your personality over here. We talk off camera and we're talking about I said that the government was closed and you said you don't know nothing about that because
No, I'm at
at
work.
work. You say you don't know nothing about that. You at work trying to make things.
No, no, I'm a good civil servant.
I love it. You were 1102 before. What's the differences between now, what you're doing versus when you're 1102 days?
So I was a contract specialist for guess I was at GSA for about 7 years and was a contract specialist almost the entirety of that. And so when you're operating in that environment, you are essentially part of the procurement slash buying process for the federal government. So how the federal government buys things, obligates the government, or how contracting officers obligate the government is a very regulated process. And so I worked in public building service of GSA, which is essentially the government's landlord. So we did a lot of build out projects. We worked in courthouses, had some customers that have very tight secret specifications. The Marshal Service is one that comes to mind. So that's what I was doing for that period of time. So what I do now is essentially I manage a program that is used to help small businesses within this sector specifically. So it's taking a certain skill set and kind of stepping back a little bit and taking that knowledge and educating small businesses on how to be successful. Being in procurement or being in contracting is a very nuanced role. I've had a lot of jobs in life. I was a contractor for many years. There's a lot that I've done. I can't say that procurement is really anything like anything else that I've done. And a lot of people, have trouble kind of understanding how to navigate that space. And what I do through the program is I help position them for success. So through this program, they're able to form that joint venture without there being an issue with size. Um, they're able to be very thoughtful and intentional on how they are building that capacity and going from, um, I guess, one area of revenue to to higher, greater revenue and capacity.
Nice. Tell us about a recent purchase you made from Amazon.
So this one I looked at on Amazon, but because I'm cheap, I got it through Best Buy. So this is such a weird purchase to talk about, especially on camera, but
just you and
I got this mattress cooling system. It
Okay.
is the craziest thing, but when I tell you, it is like the best thing ever. So look, I know it's like TMI, but I bought this mattress years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and it was latex. No one told me that latex just absorbs heat. That thing is like its own HVAC system. It's nuts. So, like especially if I'm like chilling, watching TV or something like that, then I'll turn this system on that basically sits underneath the mattress and then like blows air like onto the mattress. It's kind of funky how it's set up, but it's the best thing ever and I love it. And I almost bought it on Amazon, but Best Buy beat them out. Well, actually, Best Buy allowed me to get it that day, which was super important to me. So,
Best
yeah,
Buy did better than Amazon?
they did. It is a rare occurrence, but as my old pastor said, even a broken clock is right twice a day. So they got me that time.
Wow. Okay. An odd place or a job that you've worked at that no one ever guessed.
Boy, the oddest job I've had, I worked on a loading dock between 2 a.m. and 10 a.m. once. Probably didn't expect that.
A loading dock?
Yeah,
Like the one where you back the trucks up to?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not a whole lot I've not done.
And you were
Yeah,
actually out there
don't
with the
let this
packages?
background fool you. I've done it all. I've done it all. I've done inventory for what is it? So, when there's been like a major storm in the area and like, every car in the county has hail damage.
Yep.
Like I've worked at one of those centers where like it's just churn and burn, like car after car after car and documenting stuff. And yeah, I've done that. I've done everything.
Okay. If you weren't doing this, what do you think you'd be doing?
So that one's easy. So I would have my real estate empire. Love real estate. Could talk about it all day. Love it.
Nice, nice. Yeah. Well, we can talk about real estate.
What you want to talk about?
Wait, let's get to this. Let's talk about would you be doing real estate? You live in the DMV area, correct now?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Right. So would you be doing it here or would you be doing back home, back out in Canada?
Ooh, that's a good question. This stuff out here is expensive.
It is.
Um, so, but I've gotten to know this area very well. That's a tough one.
Okay.
Uh, the easiest answer is whatever works, wherever works.
I lived in
Yeah,
Wichita for a little bit. I worked at out there.
I've
So,
been. I have. They've all passed now, but I've had family in Wichita. Wichita's what, 3 hours from Kansas City, something like that. Three,
okay.
4 hours. Yeah. So I've been to Wichita. Sleepy little place, but I love it. It's
Windy,
good times.
very windy city. No one talks about the wind. You didn't notice it.
No.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
I was
kind of a
so again,
Googleable
I'm a
thing.
construction guy, and I was out there building a building. I was building a flight simulator building. Uh,
Uh-huh.
so when you're 60 feet up in the air, you kind of know when you have 40-mile-per-hour wind days. You have to look for that,
Yeah, yeah,
especially
you
when you're hanging on the
noticed.
side of a building, boom lift.
Yeah, I'll just say I'm glad you're here with us today, Eric.
I promise you, I try to stay off of that as much as possible. I ran the organization, but they'd want me to go inspect things, and so then they'd ask me to get up there and go inspect stuff, and I just
Yeah. Did you ever give I think it's fine from here. You ever give one of those
I
answers?
always try to do that because I'm not a fan
Yeah.
of heights, and so
Oh, that was a challenging role for you.
it was a very challenging role for me.
Yeah.
But I will say I'm very thankful because I needed that contract to get me out the hole, and I was in a bad place at the time, and that contract saved me, and it kind of resparked my whole career in government contracting and procurement, and so
Nice.
it led to a much bigger project, which then led to me doing what I do now, which is how you've come to know me.
Don't you love how in life you can connect dots like that?
Yeah,
Like even through grave situations or not the best of
right.
circumstances, like
Right.
something great can really come from that. So that's
No,
awesome.
No, it's true. I actually tell people all the time. So, and that's why, I tell people worry, but they face this situation. Like I said, it seems grave at the time, but
Mhm.
because they don't know what's around the corner, they only know to worry and to panic and to get upset. And so my life experiences taught me otherwise. So when I'm facing
Yeah,
a real situation, I'm like,
yeah.
I can't see what's around that corner, but man, I bet you that thing is like it's great. I just
No, you are just on the edge of a sermon
yeah.
and passing around a collection plate, and
Right?
you right there on the cusp,
I want to come.
right there.
So let me say this about me, right? You didn't make it to my event last year at my conference. When I spoke on stage, I said to people, I go, listen, my mom raised me up in church. Okay, since I was a kid, she runs a church till this day. I think she's been in a community church for I want to say 50 plus years.
Mm-hmm,
And so we went to all the church functions, all we were at a Nazarene church. We went to
mm-hmm,
the regional events, the state, like we did everything, the retreats,
mm-hmm.
everything. We hosted pastors at our home. So we was in church every day. And then we weren't in church, we was with the sick and shut in, so I said, so
Wow.
I go,
Okay.
I said, so the only people that I've ever heard give speeches were pastors. So I said, if I get on the stage and I sound like a pastor, you can't fault me. I had never heard anybody else give speeches before. That's except pastor sermons.
Wow.
And that's really been my life experience. That's the truth, because I mean, that's what I heard. So I go, if you hear me get up here and I sound like a little bit like a pastor, that's just know where it came from. That's how I opened up my talk.
But you well, let me keep that comment. You can edit that out.
That's all right. No, but that's
No,
just
no,
sharing my
but
experiences.
yeah, and I mean, now that I think about it, it definitely makes sense that you grew up in church. I mean, just the way you were telling that story just now, it's like, yeah, that's a 3 point sermon right
Yeah,
there
yeah, yeah,
with
right.
a
No, and
plate and an altar call.
no, I know. And they actually thought growing up that I would be a pastor. They actually, I will say this, not thought they would wanted me to become a pastor. How about that? We'll go even further. Not thought they wanted me
Is
to.
that still is that still an agenda that's pushed, you think, or is
No,
it
not so
like
much
have we
anymore.
given up on that pipe
I
dream?
think they, not so much because I feel like I preach the gospel of government contracting, right? And so,
Mm-hmm,
I'm
mm-hmm,
doing the work that other people are not doing, which is bringing all of this information, putting it publicly, making it available, accessible to the masses. I'm showcasing people who are not currently being showcased. And so when I tell people that, like, so in this year, I open up by saying that we're all talking about innovation, right? And so the reason why I've been so successful in my trainings is because my form of innovation is showing
mm-hmm.
people that look like them that are doing these types of high level projects that gives people that lets them see a pathway.
Right,
So when you can see it, you
right,
can believe it. When you believe it, you can actually it's attainable, and now you can do the activities because you know there's a path. But that's a form of innovation also, right? By showcasing
right.
success at all levels. And so when you see someone that looks like you, comes from your background, your experiences, then you go, oh, that's possible. I didn't even know that existed. So that's the good work that we do day in and day out, and that's why that's why we're
It's
innovating in terms of training and teaching and bringing more people.
mhm. When you were saying that just now, it reminded me of something I hadn't thought of in years. So I always knew I would live in DC. I always knew it. Like, so I was born and raised in Kansas City. Yeah, I've lived overseas for a short period of my life. I was in Japan for about 3 years. But when I was working in Kansas City, I would talk to people about like, moving to DC. And when you do that, people are like, oh yeah, oh yeah. And I was like, yeah, like I've got family who lives here, and I've been coming to DC since I was like 12 or 13 years old. And yeah, I had someone call me recently, I think from Facebook. I did like this internal, was not really internal. It's kind of this government wide platform that SBA does. And he saw me on there and saw that I like work and live in DC. And he called, and he was one of the people who basically kind of look at me like, you know, you're not moving to DC. You're not gonna live there. But I don't know. It's just kind of it's interesting how life works out like that. Um, just kind of just your steps being ordered. Like I look back at it now and I'm like, yeah. I mean, I knew exactly where I was going to be. Will I retire here? Who knows?
Yeah.
But I knew for a good part of my career that I would end up here, and no doubt.
There you go. That's great. So tell me, what inspires you to get up every morning and do the work that you're doing for small businesses?
What inspires me?
Yeah.
Um, I guess the same thing that initially inspired me, like just over, growing up, having watched my mom do it, um, knowing that when I do this job specifically, no 2 days are ever the same. Like people say to me, like, boy, you know so much about this. And that's because I've been asked a lot of random stuff in the past 5 years. Some of the, I had a question this week from someone on the team, and I sat there like, ay, 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 okay. Yeah, let me think about that one. But when, your mind is constantly being stretched, it's so much better than the mundane.
Mhm.
So yeah, I manage a program, but the stuff that makes the program work and what positions me as a subject matter expert is just doing different stuff every day, but always making sure that I move the needle. If I talk to someone, it's not just talking, I'm helping them move forward some type of way, whether it's their application or, man, I got this question or this issue going on with my joint venture, or this agency put out a solicitation and they said some stuff about past performance that doesn't match what SBA says. So, what do you say about that, KA? Whatever it is, and yeah, I get questions like that. Um, Whatever it is, I'm moving things forward. I'm helping the small business community, as cheesy as it sounds, one business at a time.
Let me ask something because we didn't mention numbers. Do you have any numbers or metrics in terms of the number of mentor proteges that are out there, or the number of mentors, or number of proteges, or like, do you have any numbers that are like how
Right now, I can
go
tell
forward?
you, sure, sure. In SBA's Mentor Protégé Program, the last time I looked, which was maybe a day or two ago, we were right at about 1,902 active agreements.
Yeah.
It changes every day as firms are coming in and leaving the program, or they've either done a voluntary termination or we have unilaterally terminated the MPA. Those numbers fluctuate bit by bit. Um, any other metrics you're
Yeah, I
thinking
mean,
about?
what about the small businesses? Are there a typical size coming in there? Is there typical like are they, I don't know, are they under 5 million? Are they above 5 million? Or is there, the combined sizes or something? Is there anything else that maybe um
I don't know if I have
lacking?
those metrics specifically. I can tell you participation. This is just generally speaking. Participation in the Mentor Protege program really does kind of just mimic the federal marketplace. Like when you're looking at like what are the top NAICS codes, it's the top NAICS codes that you would see on USA Spending or an FPSNG, with construction pretty much always taking, number one or number two, probably IT. Those two are probably neck and neck. So the same participation, I think, is probably happening in the Mentor Protege program. We have more IT and construction firms than anything.
Is there any what about like rate of failure or rate of success? Anything, any numbers that are public that are put out? I'm sure there's got to be some way that Congress is saying, hey, this program's working, this program's not working. Um,
Right, right. I don't have that data massaged at the moment as far as like which ones are working and which ones aren't. Fortunately, I don't have that data.
okay. No, I just I like metrics and numbers so that we can quantify like how big this is, right? So but
I
that's
would say that compared to the other programs, we have exponentially more agreements than anyone else. And that's not really a competition as more as SBA has been positioned as the generalist of the mentor protege programs, whereas the six other mentor protege programs in federal government are very specific to their own respective missions. So, yes, they're going to have fewer. And I might add to that, especially when I'm comparing our program to DOD's mentor protege program, entry into their program hinges primarily on the mentor and primarily on the protege for us. So just entry alone into those programs is different. Also, that waiver of affiliation, you're not getting any other mentor protege agreement with any other agency. You're like, oh, I'm going to create a joint venture from that. Like, that's not a thing with other mentor protege programs. So the way those programs operate are I guess, respected to each of those agencies.
nice. Two more questions. I'll let you go. Favorite book, movie, TV show that uplifts your spirits.
There's a book I've been trying to read, and maybe since I'm taking the week off next week, I'll actually accomplish the goal. It is by Willie Jolly. I've actually got like maybe two of his books. He's a huge motivational speaker, and he actually came to SBA very recently. I bought a few of his books. I've not had a chance to read either one, but I plan to accomplish that when I'm on leave next week. As far as TV shows, on the weekends, I'll definitely watch some TV and just kind of decompress. My favorite show by far is Lioness.
Mhm.
I could talk about it all day and get into the sociology, economics, the politics of it, how the script is written. Like I love well written TV shows. See, I can just keep talking about it. But the show is phenomenal, and there's a few Emmys that should be passed out just because of that show. There are some speeches and some storylines that are just they're top notch. Like some of those, I haven't seen that type of work comprehensively, in my opinion, since the early Game of Thrones, not past season 5. Let's not kid ourselves. And then The Sopranos. Like it's up there.
Up
It's
there.
up there in just 2 seasons. It's up there. It's
I
good
gotta check it
times.
out.
I love it.
All right. Go ahead and one, tell us how small businesses connect with you, and then two, some parting words. That'd be great.
Absolutely. So the best way to get in touch with us and to get your questions answered is to email us at SBA, so Small Business Administration, MPP, Mentor Protege Program at SBA.gov. There's a different person in there 5 days a week answering those questions. And so we get to them and we answer them very quickly. We pride ourselves in being super responsive. As far as parting words, I cannot end this without one, just telling the world about the awesome team that I have at the Mentor Protege program, because it's not just me. I lead a team of 5 individuals who also are very passionate about and care so much about all of you small businesses out there who are wanting to do something different and make some type of change for yourself, your families, your communities. And they just care a great deal. I've got an awesome screener and two really great application analysts and two really great annual evaluation analyst, and they care so much about, well, look at this answer this person put on this annual evaluation. Is this something we should be concerned about, or is this, something that we should take a deeper look at? So they're a great team, and we do all that we do with just the six of us. what I'll say as parting words is, I really want to make sure, and I've said this a few times and it's been very deliberate. I want to make sure that one, you get to know and learn this program. So if you have some time this weekend, just take some time and go to our website. Just simply Google SBA Mentor Protégé Program. We've got a wealth of information there. We even have kind of some a training portal, if you will, where you can kind of see like, okay, this gives me kind of a easy understanding as to how the program works. And take my advice on how to find a mentor, spend time cultivating that relationship, and just write out a plan for how you see your company looking in X amount of time, and how you can use any of these programs, whether it's the Mentor Protege program or the 4 certification programs that I've mentioned earlier. In this webinar. So if you just take a look at that, and just carefully think about how to get where you want to go, you'll be unstoppable. So I care about all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thanks for being here, and we appreciate your time today and giving some insights. And like I said earlier, we'll definitely do a part 2 where we can deep dive into like the more advanced level topics. But I think this is a great intro for
Absolutely.
people to get an understanding and be familiarized themselves with the program, and then to be able to ask questions. So we'll come in later, part 2, the next part of next year in 2025. So I look forward to
Awesome.
seeing you then. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.